Tigger the shop cat is going to install this wiring harness into the back of this Toyota Prius. Once you've cleared the usual suspects, then yank that out of there so you have room here. And instead of struggling with these side panels, I like to take a Phillips and get this out, but an 8 monkey meters would work as well, and a 10 monkey millimeters for this. It helps to know where the clips are, so you're pulling on the right part of the panel to get it loose. Pull right where the clip is. It's a lot less likely to damage the panel. It also helps that I'm in Georgia, and so plastic is really pliable here. In colder climates, it can be really brittle. In a lot of these Priuses, you can get to the connector through this hole here. You gotta have smaller hands than me. And even with smaller hands, I like to route the wires from the harness that I'm installing behind these panels and along here, and I can't do that if I don't pull the panel loose. I'm still on the left side here, and this connector has the release right here, pushing it down with my thumb, and that forces this to lift up on the other connector, and then they can be pulled apart. Of course, that takes 2 hands, so I can't hold the camera while doing that. Once released though, it just comes apart like that. And then of course I do the right side. And then I apply dielectric grease. It's not conductive, so it doesn't help with the connections. What it does help is it helps the next guy not have a connector that's stuck together. And it helps keep moisture out of the connections, which helps keep things from corroding. And because it's non-conductive, it won't short electricity from one connector to the other, no matter how close they are and no matter how much dielectric grease you get on them. You'd think this would only be necessary in an under the hood situation where there's lots of heat and moisture and stuff like that, but these old Priuses have a bad habit of developing leaks behind these tail lights and stuff, and then it'll puddle up in the battery tray or puddle up in this other section over here, or puddle up down there where the spare tire is, and then you've got lots of moisture in there. The double connector with the yellow wires goes to the left. It needs to go behind this panel when hooked up so that it can be routed behind the panel, and just goes in series like that. It's plug and play. And this is the off-brand of this harness. I will put a link to it in the description, but I will also put a link to the Kurt in the description, because sometimes you can get the Kurt for only like $10 more. This other one with all the greens and reds goes over here to the right hand side. Again, just plug and play. And now we have a pretty short ground wire, and it's white like house wiring for some reason, and I'm just going to pin it between this panel and underneath the cargo strap, which has a really nice stainless bolt. Should get a really good ground. If these clips come loose from the panel instead of coming from the car, this tool right here is a good one to get those out. I'll put a link in the description to a pair of these. They're really cheap. If you want to make sure they're easier to deal with later, plain old petroleum jelly. Just a little bit on there, a little bit on there. Then when you snap them in place, they still hold, but if you ever have to take it back out, they come out of the hole instead of coming out of the panel. This power wire, I like to connect under this nut rather than this nut, and then pretty fire my wires and leave all this down in here so that when towing, you got to lift the hatch to pull your receiver out so that you can install it anyway. So you might as well reach in there at the same time and get your wiring harness out. And you see the wires are laid flat so that they can go across the weather stripping and then straight to the trailer. Because if I route it through that little hole underneath the spare tire and then through the plastic and out here somewhere and have to pin it up somehow every time I trailer something, it can come loose, or I can forget about it and it drop down and rub on the ground and then ruin the end of the harness. So what do you guys think? Prefer it to live in there until use, or prefer it to be routed out here? And the size of that nut is 12 monkey meters. Now if I need to tow, receiver and wiring harness, lay it there. A link to the trailer hitch install will appear in one of these corners over here, and a link to the Toyota Prius repair playlist will appear in the other corner.